So let's talk about the Africa Risk Capacity Insurance, which was a specialized agency of the African Union established in 2012 to help African governments improve their capacities to better plan, prepare, and respond to extreme weather events and natural disasters. But little did the founders of the ARC know that a global disaster of COVID-19 pandemic was just around the corner. The CEO of the agency, LESLEY, NDLOVU, joins me now from Johannesburg for an assessment of what the agency's been doing. Good evening, Leslie. Thanks for coming through on the show.
Good evening to you and good evening, viewers.
Thank you. Briefly summarize the activities of the African Risk Capacity Insurance since 2020 started.
So thank you. 2020 has turned out to be an unbelievably busy year, as you can imagine. At the beginning of the year, we made a payout to Senegal on a drought insurance policy amounting to $23 million. But we did not expect that by the start of the year, we would be battling this pandemic. We have, in addition to the work that we are doing on drought insurance, been working with the African CDC to create tools that would allow governments to understand the exposure that they have in terms of COVID-19 and to develop mitigation measures. On the drought insurance side, we also made payouts to Zimbabwe and to Madagascar. So it has been quite a busy 2020.
Yes. But talk to us about the Africa COVID-19 Decision Support Tools Initiative. What is this initiative all about and what does it entail?
This is one of the initiatives that we are really proud of because it shows how African institutions can come together to help governments solve the problems that we face. The simulation tool allows the government to develop a number of scenarios in terms of how COVID-19 will spread and then develop specific mitigation measures for combating the spread of COVID-19, understanding what its impact would be, and ultimately repositioning themselves for when the rebound in the economy happens much later on.
So what has this initiative shows across the sub-Saharan Africa where it's been tested?
It is a difficult question to give one universal answer to because the effect of COVID-19 has not been uniform across the African continent. Some countries, such as South Africa, have been impacted more severely than others. However, this tool then allows governments to have a consistency in terms of understanding the problem, consistency in terms of developing mitigation measures that are relevant for each specific country. And we start to then have the critical mass of a coordinated continent-wide effort.
So there has been responses and funding into Zimbabwe and Madagascar, as you have said. Are there other countries on your waiting list, Leslie?
So then we operate an insurance risk pool, which means that countries sign up for policies at the beginning of the agricultural season. And if there is a rainfall deficit in the country, more commonly referred to as a drought, then the country would receive a claim payment. And the claim payment then allows the country to start to respond and provide drought relief. This year, we have had exceptional participation in the risk pool. We usually have 10 countries participating. And this year, we've had about 16 countries participating. It shows an increasing level of understanding in terms of how insurance can be used to solve some of the natural catastrophe risks that countries face. And it also shows the importance that countries are placing on disaster risk preparedness.
Yes, for example, in East Africa, the issues around the locust plague in that region.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when you look at the life cycle of implementing disaster risk management and financing, insurance is sort of comes at the end of the process. But the basics are that the country needs to understand the risk that it faces, needs to then develop a contingency plan, needs to then decide what amount of risk they want to retain and how much risk they want to transfer out through a mechanism like the African risk capacity, which then aggregates the risks on a continent-wide basis and places them in the international reinsurance markets. And this allows a very effective and efficient transfer of risk to the global markets.
Yes, because one of the key concerns, and has been expressed around the world, is that there will be a food shortage with this pandemic, which is COVID-19. So when you look at countries that you can consider as the bread baskets across certain regions in Africa, Nigeria in West Africa, Zimbabwe in Southern Africa, what are you seeing here? What has been your engagement with these two countries, for example?
So in the specific case of Zimbabwe, as I mentioned earlier, they benefited from a drought insurance policy payout this year. And we are already involved in discussions with them for the renewal of their policy for the upcoming agricultural season. In Southern Africa, the agricultural season starts in October. In the case of Nigeria, we have not formalized the engagement in terms of what exactly we will do with the government, but there is good willingness and discussions on both sides. Next year, we are going to be rolling out a flood insurance product. And from the discussions we've had with the Nigerian government, it sounds like this is something that would be of more interest to them than the product suite that we currently have.
So in specific terms, what collaborative support are you receiving from within and outside the continent for the work you're doing at the ARC?
So then I will start with the support that we are receiving externally. We have received support of about 20 million euros from KfW and BMZ in Germany. And this is to support countries in the payment of insurance premiums to allow them to transfer some of the risks to the African risk capacity. As you know, there was the appointment by the African Union of the envoys Trevor Manuel, Donald Kaberuka, Tidjane Thiam, and Dr. Ngozi Weller to really spearhead the effort of the African response to COVID-19. And we have seen the benefits of that through the increased participation that I mentioned from the German government. We have also received financial support from the US government in terms of developing COVID-related tools. We have worked very closely with the World Bank. As you know, the World Bank has been a pioneer in pandemic financing through their PEF program, which was triggered during the pandemic and paid off to some countries to help them in the response to the COVID-19 pandemic. So really, it's been a broad-based collaboration because these huge challenges require that the public sector and the private sector work very closely together because no one has the universal solution, but we can all contribute to solving this common problem.
The final question, what is your outlook on the rest of the year 2020?
So then the big unknown, as you can imagine, is just how COVID-19 will play out. In Eastern and Southern Africa, I think there is the expectation that as we transition from winter into summer, we should see an easing of the pandemic, which will then allow the gradual resumption of normal economic activity. But then, unfortunately, while this is happening in the Southern Hemisphere, in the Northern Hemisphere, they are going to be moving back into autumn and then into winter. So we still need to see how everything will pan out. However, to end on an optimistic note, we know a lot more about COVID-19 than we did 3 or 4 months ago. This means that we are now better equipped to deal with the effect, and then the stimulus measures that the governments have been introducing are also starting to take hold. So all in all, I expect that the rest of the year is going to be much better than what we have seen so far.
I love the optimistic note on which we're ending this tonight. Thank you very much for your views and your point and bringing us up to speed. Leslie NDLOVU, the CEO at Africa Risk Capacity Insurance Limited.